Assalamu alaikum. Welcome. Lisaan-ul-Qur'an, Easier Than English, Lesson 23. Inshallah, in this lesson, we're going to learn a special set of verbs which we have not studied before, and they are called defective or incomplete verbs. The most common of them is Kana, Yakunu, Kun, which is the second most common set of verbs used in the Quran. And not only that, you'll find them in hadith, of course, and literature. We're going to learn in this lesson how they're commonly used. And inshallah ta'ala, we'll also look at other verbs that also follow the same grammar rules. So a very important lesson. Let's begin in the blessed name of Allah. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. So what are defective verbs? How are they different from the normal verbs that we've been looking at so far? Now, if you recall right at the beginning when we started looking at verbs, I mentioned that every verb in Arabic has three essential pieces of information. Of course, there are a lot more, but three most important. Number one, we know the action, the action that is mentioned in the verb. We know the doer, which is an internal pronoun, and we also know the tense. So the example of the verb that we have on the screen, salamtu, I gave salam. Here it's very easy. The action is to give salam or to greet someone. And of course, the doer here is I. The tu represents ana and tells us who the doer is. And then we also have the tense. We know that this is a past tense or al-Madi. So salamtu, I gave salam. This is the standard type of verbs and the basics of which we should be familiar with. So with a defective verb, for example, kuntu, which means I was, we have, of course, the doer, I, that's obvious. And we also have the tense. It could be past, Madi, or it could be an imperfect tense, present and future, al-Mudari. So here we have Madi, and also we have technically the root. The root tells us here, kaf, waw, and noon. But what is missing? When I say I was, the action itself is not clear. When I say I became, again, the action is not very clear. So the action itself is not very clear. It's not really speaking about any specific action. And it is for this reason it is called defective. So again, just to remind the 3 points, the defective verbs, the action is incomplete. It needs something else to fulfill the message. So within the root itself is not clear what the action is. Something else is needed outside. And then of course we have the doer like any other verb. And we have the tense. So the action itself is deficient or weak or incomplete would be the better translation. And that is why these are called defective verbs. The most common of them is Kana, Yakunu, Kun. Very commonly used in the Arabic language. It is the second most common root, kaf, waw, and noon, in the Quran. And it's used about 1400 times, 1390. And there are 13 verbs which behave exactly the same as Kana, Yakunu, Kun in the Arabic language. They're collectively called Kana and her sisters also. Very similar to when we looked at Inna and her sisters. If you recall that lesson, this one is Kana and her sisters. And of course, all of them would behave exactly the same way grammatically. And that's why they are grouped differently or grouped together and called Kana and her sisters, or the set of defective verbs. We're going to look at Kana, Yakunu, Kun in some detail because it is the most common. The others are exactly the same and not all of them are used extensively in the Quran. So there are 13 verbs which are collectively called Kana wa akhawatuha, Kana and her sisters. The set of defective verbs. Now the good news is we don't have to study all of them. The most common ones that are used in the Quran, of course, is Kana and its derivatives and Laisa. Now, if you recall, I've briefly covered Laisa when we did negation of sentences. And also we have Asbaha, which is used 29 times. And then we have Dhalla, which is used 11. And the others, Bata, rarely. And the rest of them are only used once in the Quran. The others are not used at all. So these are the ones. The good news is if you learn Kana, the rules apply equally to all of them. So again, we're going to focus in this lesson on Kana, Yakunu, Kun, and we'll briefly look at some examples of the most common ones in the Quran. Once you learn one, all the others will behave grammatically exactly the same. So let's begin by looking at the conjugation of the most common one, Kana, Yakunu, Kun. Kana, of course, is the Madi, and Yakunu is the Mudari, and Kun is the Amr, the command form of the verb. Now, alhamdulillah, if you've learnt the previous lesson well, which is Qala, he said, this will be very easy. Because just like qala, where we had qaf, waw and lam was the root, here we have kaf, waw and noon. It also belongs to the same group, nasara, yansuru, unsur. Of course, the changes will happen because of the middle root letter waw. In order to keep the video short, I'm not going to repeat all the changes and all the changes that occur because of the middle root letter being waw. But inshallah ta'ala, hopefully this will not require detail. If there is requirement, please do let me know in the feedback, and inshallah do a separate video on the changes that occur in Bab Nasara. So Nasara, he helped. This is, instead of being Kawana, it becomes Kana. Kana. Please look at the previous lesson where we learned Qawala became Qala, he said. Instead of Qawala, Qala. So what's going on here? Kana literally would mean he was. Please note the translations. Kana, he was. Now instead of saying Kana, I wanted to say they too were. What would that be? Of course, simply add the alif at the end when we end up with Kana. So Kana, Kana for dual. If I want to say they were, three or more, masculine plural, I would simply put the same changes we know before. Kanu. So again, let's do them together. Kana, Kana, Kanu. And for here we have Kanat. Again, refer back to Qalat. Kanat. Kanat, she was. And I want to say they too were. Again, we have Kanata. Kanata, they too were. And then we have the feminine plural. For hunna, hiya, huma, hunna. If you remember, that will be hunna. Hunna. And in Bab Nasr, I told you, it takes a dhamma on the first root letter. So we have the 6 here. Let's practice them again. Kana, kana, kanu. So let's practice them again. Kana, kana, kanu. Kanat, kanata, kunna. And for the second person, anta, we have kunta, you were. So in English, we won't say you was, we will say you were. Kunta. And if I want to talk to two of you, I will simply say kuntuma. Exactly the same with all the other verbs we've seen, and I've colored it in red for your convenience. Kunta, kuntuma. And for plural, it will be simple, exactly as done before, kuntum. Again, kunta, kuntuma, kuntum. And for the feminine, it will be kunti, kuntuma, kuntunna. Kunti, kuntuma, kuntunna. So let's do the whole 12 of them. We have kana, kana, kanu, kanat, kanata, kunna, kunta, kuntuma, kuntum, kunti, kuntuma, kuntunna. And for the first person, I and we, very easy. You should be able to do it yourself. Kuntu, I was. Kuntu, and we were would be kunna, kunna. Again, note the shadda in kunna, the noon at the end, and kuntunna. And kunna is due to the noon being a root letter, which is the last root letter, and also, of course, the noon, which is part of the doer in the verb itself. And that's why the changes are there. I hope this is easy, inshallah. I cannot emphasize the importance of you memorizing this chart, reading it 3-4 times using the hand signs I've showed you before, as well as rewriting it. If you write it a couple of times, inshallah, whole 14 of them will become second nature to you. And as I said, they're used, the root itself is about 1390 times in the Quran. And this, the Kana, Yakunu, Kun, only those forms are nearly 1350 odd times in the Quran. So very, very important set. So please learn this one. The Maadi is used more commonly than the Mudare. So you must learn these 14. So we've done the Maadi. The Mudare would be Yakunu. Yakunu. There will be some changes from our pattern Nasara, Yansuru, based upon the middle root letter being weak, i.e. Waw. However, the changes that you've learned before will be exactly the same. So inshallah, I'm hoping that this is not going to cause you much of a problem. So let's practice, inshallah ta'ala, the 14 forms. So we have yakunu, and the dual is yakunani, yakunu, yakunani, and the plural is yakununa. One more time. Yakunu, yakunani, yakununa. These are your 3 representing huwa, huma, hum. Again, a revision of what we've done so far. And that's the beauty. If you learn one very well, the same thing is repeated again and again. All you got to know is how the root is playing and what bab it belongs to, and the rest is easy. Again, I hope you can work out the feminine from here. The here version should be ya changed to a ta. It'll be takunu. And the dual is again the same suffix takunani, takunani. And the plural will be yakunna, yakunna. So let's do the 6 one more time for practice. Yakunu, yakunani, yakununa. Takunu, takunani, yakunna. As for the second person, when you're talking to somebody, and you in English, of course in Arabic we have different forms. So we have anta, it will be exactly the same as here. Again, if you recall all the other mudara that we've done, that will also be anta takunu, anta takunu. The dual is exactly the same, takunani, and the plural is takununa. And for the feminine, we have an ina sound at the end. I hope you can recall that. We have takunina, and the dual is takunani, and the plural is takunna. So takunina, takunani, takunna. And of course, the first person would be, again, the hand goes here, akunu, and then the plural will be nakunu. Akunu, nakunu. Let's practice all of them together. Yakunu, yakunani, yakununa. Takunu, takunani, takununa. Takunina, takunani, takunna. Akunu, nakunu. Now using the hand sign removes the confusion because there's quite a few of them which are repeated, and then you could get confused with second person, third person. But so using the hand sign like I showed you, inshallah will make it easy. Again, very important for you to memorize these. Please read them, repeat them, and more importantly, make sure that you are able to write them down from memory. And inshallah, if you write them down twice or 3 times, I'm confident you'll be able to recall and memorize them, inshallah, as long as you leave a gap in between. So you practice once, say on Monday, you practice again on Wednesday, and you practice again on Friday with a gap. As far as the reading practice is concerned, you can do that 3 times a day, 4 times a day, whatever number of times you need to, and very soon the second most common root of Quran will become familiar to you. If you recall, I showed you a little trick before. If you know one, to get the most common ones in the Quran very, very easily. Now, in the Quran, the singular versions are the most commonly used, and also the hum version and antum version. They're very, very easy to work out from the first one. All you do is yakunu, huwa yakunu. It will be here, and you just replace the ya with a ta. I hope you can remember that, inshallah. Let's do that for you. Hiya takunu. Now, anta version is exactly the same as the hiya version. So again, we do exactly the same. We take the yakunu version and we simply change the ya to a ta, just like we did before, and we have takunu. Now for ana, again, is very, very easy. You take the yakunu version and you put the ya, I should say you replace the ya with a hamza. Hamza sitting on an alif. Hamza always sits on an alif if it's the first letter of a word. In the middle, it can sit on a waw, ya, or by itself, and the same thing at the end. Anyway, for we, again, very simple. You take the ya version and you change the ya to a noon, and we have nakunu, and that's it. See how easy it is? So whichever verb, no matter how complex it is, for the mudare version, the singulars are very easy. The sign ya, ta, hamza, alif with a zabar on the top, or a noon are the prefixes that are changed. And as far as the plural of hum is concerned, the plural version of yakunu is concerned, we just simply put the una sound at the end and we have the plural. And the same thing with takunu, we put the and we have the plural. And these are the most common sighas used in the Quran for any verb. So if you know the trick, Madi to Mudare, from Mudare, you can just form these, and these are the ones you're likely to say. I'm not saying the others are not used at all. They are, but very, very rare. So majority of the verbs that you will come across will be the singular and the hum version and the antum version as far as the statistics of the words of Quran is concerned. So you can see, alhamdulillah, nothing really to struggle with, nothing really to, get frustrated over. Simply use these tips, inshallah ta'ala, because our object really is to try to recognize them in the Quran. As far as the command version is concerned, again, very, very easy. If you remember, qul, say, when you command somebody to say, and then the other version is exactly identical. There really isn't major changes here, except for, of course, kunna, when you have the noon, which is the root plus others. Now, the only versions that you need to know, as far as Quranic is concerned of this one, is the kun version and the kunu and kuni, I believe, is used only once in the Quran. The others are not used or rarely used in the Quran. So this is kun and kunu. So let's repeat them, inshallah, so that you can get them down. Please write them down a couple of times so you can memorize them. Again, remember, this is command form. When you're telling something, when you're ordering somebody, requesting somebody, imperative, it is called in grammar or in Arabic, al-amr. So you have kun, kuna, kunu, kun, kuna, kunu, and the feminine, kuni, kuna, kunna, kuni, kuna, kunna. The only versions you need to focus on is kun, kunu, and kuni. So to form the prohibitive, you take the anta, antuma, antum, anti, antuma, antunna versions, and you put la in front. You keep the ta, which is at the beginning, of course. We put la in the front, and at the end, if it has a dhamma, it is replaced with a sukoon, and if it has a noon of i'rab, it is removed. And we went through that in detail. So the versions we end up with, the prohibitive version is la takun, don't be, la takuna, la takunu, and that's the plural when you're talking to three or more, when you're negating command for three or more. And for the feminine, la takuni, la takuna, la takunna. Again, remember the antunna version is the noon at the end remains, it does not get removed. And that's it. So alhamdulillah, I went through some steps at the beginning when we did the verbs, and exactly the same is happening with kana, yakunu, kun, la takun version. So kana, we can form 14 very easily by adding the suffixes at the end or to indicate the doer. Yakunu, again, we can form the 14 versions, and I've already shown you how to do the most common ones, the little tip that I shared with you. As far as the command is concerned, again, very easy to form. We learned 6 versions, and the prohibitive is also 6. So you can see very easily, once you learn these steps, you can form words by yourself. More importantly, you can actually recognize them when you see it. You get the feeling, oh, this is a command form, oh, this is a Madi, this is a Mudare, and the doer is, or the sigha is 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever it may be. And this is the most difficult thing to do at the beginning. Once you've learned it and you followed a systematic process, inshallah, for most verbs, you will not struggle at all. Please note, this verb does not have a passive version. Does not have a passive version. So please note that also. And of course, it has a masdar, and it also has the ismu fa'il, the doer version also, the noun of the doer, as I should say. But as far as you and I are concerned, these are the most commonly used ones in the Quran. Kana, yakunu, kun, la takun. Please note them down, inshallah ta'ala, for your reference. Using kana in sentences. So in the first one I have Zaid is small. The mubtada and the khabar you should be able to familiar with, and you can hopefully can recognize. As we know, the mubtada is definite and the khabar is indefinite. They match in number and they match in gender. And the khabar must be rafa, marfu', and the subject should also be marfu'. And if you got those 2 points, inshallah, alhamdulillah, if you're not familiar with this, you need to go back to first steps, inshallah, and go through the lessons I did with you. And I went through this in detail in the first 4 or 5 lessons, and that really is the foundation of Arabic. Now, if I wanted to put emphasis in the sentence, then we of course studied Inna and her sisters. I would put Inna in front of the nominal sentence, and I will end up with some changes. What happens to the changes? Hopefully, inshallah, you can recall. The first thing we do is we change Zaidun to Zaidan. So the mubtada now become mansub. Okay, please note. And the khabar will be, of course, in rafa. So this is now going to be changed to ismu inna. We're not going to call it mubtada anymore. Why? Because inna has come and it has changed the mubtada to mansub, and mubtada cannot be mansub. It is called ismu inna. And of course, the khabar is now called khabaru inna. So please again note the properties that the mubtada or now the ismu inna must be mansub, and the khabar of inna remains marfu'. And these are the two grammatical changes that happens. And of course, the translation would be one of emphasis. Indeed, Zaid is small. Now imagine I want to say Zaid was small, i.e. I want to put this sentence in the past tense. Take a nominal sentence in the past tense. The way we do that in Arabic, there are other ways, but the way we do that in Arabic using Kana is that we put Kana in the front. Kana will now take the sentence meaning into the past tense. Please note, Kana is a verb. It is a defective verb, but it impacts on nominal sentence and makes the following changes. The first thing we will do, we will note that the khabar now must be mansub. Please note that. The khabar must be mansub and the mubtada will be marfu'. So those will be the changes, but we cannot call it mubtada and khabar anymore. So we call it ismu kana, which is marfu', and we have khabaru kana, which is mansub. So please again note the changes. This is marfu' and this is mansub. And now that's what Kana does. Kana and her sisters, all of them, they will take a nominal sentence and they will convert the mubtada to ismu kana and it will remain marfu', and the khabar of kana will be mansub. And it will now be called khabaru kana. And that is it. If you can remember that, inshallah, and that is why I spent a lot of time at the beginning going through Arab. It is considered to be the most complex subject in Arabic, but inshallah, this step-by-step methodology, inshallah, hopefully, is not proving complex for you. So in summary, brothers and sisters, Kana changes the jumla ismiya, the nominal sentence, meaning to the past. It puts the meaning into the past as far as change in translation is concerned. The mubtada will now be marfu'. And the khabar will be mansub. And that's it. Mubtada marfu', khabar mansub. And it is called ismu kana and khabaru kana. Now, of course, it depends on the type of word ism it is and the category for its i'rab. Now, if I wanted to negate the past tense sentence, all we do is very simple with ma in front. So here I have the first sentence, Kana talibu maridan. Now what that means, the student was ill. If I wanted to say the student is ill, simply I say at-talibu maridun. Right? Standard nominal sentence. But I want to now say the student was ill. I put kana in front, puts it in the past tense, job done. Kana, and then the rest of the sentence, and we can make the changes to the khabar. But if I want to say the student was not ill, all I do to cancel the negation is put ma in front. Ma will make it now negative. It will negate the impact of the meaning. So ma kana talibu maridan, the student was not ill. Please note that, inshallah, because it is used in the Quran, the negation by ma. One very important message about the use of kana. Kana, when it is used with the word Allah, lafz jalala, when it is used with the word Allah, and again we have an example here, Kana Allahu ghafuran. Remember, in Arabic, and this is a very important rule in the Arabic language, it is always translated in the present tense. So with the word Allah, it is always translated in the present tense. So we have Allah is forgiving. Kana Allahu ghafuran. Allah is forgiving. Kana Allahu ghafuran. Allah is forgiving. Please note this very important point. Whenever kana is used, yakunu, etc., because with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala there is no past, present, future, And in the language, it is also very clear whenever you use it with the word Allah, you will translate it as is, not was, as we've done in the previous examples. Two sentences on the screen which will help you remember the basic rules of inna and kana. Again, a lot of people get confused, but again, distinguish it from the standard sentence. Okay, so what we have, Allahu ghafurun will be standard. And what happens when we add inna or kana? This is what we have. Inna Allaha ghafurun. Again, please note ismu inna and khabaru inna, which you can see on the screen very clearly. And if I put kana in front, kana Allahu ghafuran. Kana Allahu ghafuran. Please note the ismu kana and the khabaru kana. And the i'rab changes which you'll note here, inshallah, which will be very easy for you to take note of, is the rafa and the nasab, which you can see on the screen and here highlighted for your benefit. So please write out these couple of sentences, memorize them. I found them very useful when I was confused with all these sentence structures. My teacher taught me these two sentences and I found them very, very beneficial. And since then I have used them, inshallah. So these two sentences are very, very important for you to write down, note, and of course understand particular changes in i'rab. Few tips about how to translate them correctly. Please note is exactly the same as we have seen with the verbal sentences before. Of course, this is now using in a nominal sentence. So we have first one, Kana, he was, mualliman, mualliman. Please note that of course this is in nasab or mansub. I hope this is easy for you, inshallah. Now Kana would have a doer inside, is huwa. Huwa. And again, that should not be a revision for you. You should know that instantly. Kana, then you translate it as huwa. So whenever you see kana or kanat, if you see kana or kanat, and you see afterwards an ism which is marfu in rafa, then you will say, yes, that can be the ismu kana. But here we don't have that. We don't have another one. We have to use the internal pronoun in the translation. So we translate that as he was a teacher. He was a teacher. So I'm taking the he from here. I hope that's very clear. In the second example, we have Kana Zaidun Taliban. Again, we have the doer huwa in the Kana itself. So he was would be the translation, but I have an ism afterwards, which is marfu or rafa, and I have another ism after which is nasab. Kana Zaidun Taliban. Again, now what would happen in my translation, because Zaidun is now ismu kana, I will not translate the huwa anymore. So the translation now would be Zaid was a student. So please note that only with kana or kanat when we use the internal pronoun or an external pronoun. With all the others, it will be simply the pronoun itself. So we have the feminine version here, and we have kanat, as you can see here, that is a sign of it being feminine. It's also sigha number 4. Therefore, there is here. But how do we translate this one? We translate it as she was a student. Exactly the same principle in the previous example. Now here also we have kanat. And of course we have the here. But we have Maryamu, which is marfu, and which is mansub for talibatan. Now, of course, we will translate now Maryam as the subject of the sentence. Remember, in English, subject always comes first. So, Maryam was a student. Maryam was a student. I hope you can see that. Very easy. So, only with 1 and 4, you will translate the pronoun or the external. With all the others, it's only the pronoun. So, please note these 4 sentences. Again, they helped me a lot. So, I'm giving them to you. Inshallah ta'ala as gift. Please learn them, write them down, and make sure you understand what's going on. If you understand the simple, you'll understand the complex with a little bit of practice, inshallah. So please make the note of these students and these sentences, and please memorize them and write them down until you're fully aware of what's going on within the sentence structures. Well, let's share these 4 sentences with you and the translations. Please write them down and make a note of them. Make sure you understand what is going on with especially i'rab and what is going on with the translation. If you can understand these 4 sentences, this will remove all the complexities that are usually associated with people trying to remember lots of rules. And if you, again, with any grammar rule, unless you really practice it, you will not be able to understand it. And my principle is I always tell people that if you can give me an example, then I know you understood it. Otherwise, all you've done is parrot fashion, memorize the rules, and that does not going to help you, inshallah. So please note these sentences, write them down, make the additional notes to explain what's going on. If you can explain it to somebody, then inshallah ta'ala you've learnt it. Few more examples. Here we have kunna. Again, I hope you don't have any difficulty to recognize that this is nahnu. Nahnu as our doer, and therefore it is not one or four. We've got no choice. We have to translate the pronoun as the subject. So in English, we will translate we. Kunna, we. We were ignorant. We were ignorant. And kuntu. Kuntu, again, I hope you have no problem recognizing tu, representing ana, and therefore there will be no need to look anywhere else. We will, the subject will be I. I was unwell or I was sick. I was unwell or sick, depends on the English translation you prefer. So again, you can see here, the doer is the pronoun. So anything from 1 and 4, this is the principle you follow. The next two examples we have, again, just to give you the tips that you need for translating, inshallah, we won't dwell too much on it. Ar-rijalu. So we've already got a subject right at the beginning. So in English, the translation of that, I'm sure you know, the men, the men. And then we have the wow. Because it's coming after the subject, it has to be the plural version because rijal is plural in Arabic and is masculine. So this is the home version, a home version. We have here home version, kanu. Salihin, I hope you can recognize this one. Salihun is the rafa version. Salihin is the nasab or jar version. Again, it's coming after kana, so it has to be mansub. The translation would be, the men were pious. You could technically say the men, they were pious, if you want to do a literal translation, but in English, this is sufficing. So the men were pious. The men were pious. So I hope you can see that, inshallah. And in the next example, we have straightforward, right at the beginning, we have kanu. So of course, it will be whom. There is no need to look for anything else because it is not 1 or 4. So we would say they were, and mushrikeen, not mushrikun, mushrikeen. So this is nasab because coming after kana, they were idolaters or they were polytheists, whichever translation you prefer. So you can see here, alhamdulillah, these are the very basic examples that you need to do, and inshallah the rules will become very easy for you. So again, take a note of these sentences, inshallah. I have used them with many students. They found them very beneficial. These sentences are enough and has saved you making pages and pages of notes. And this will help you remember the basic principles. Again, with the examples I've given you previously, note them all down in your notebook. And please make sure you understand what is going on. One example of negation, there are many, but I wanted to share this one from the Quran for you. We have ma at the beginning. So that will negate everything, right? Remember the example I gave you before. Kana. So Kana is going to put it in the past tense. Ibrahimu, Ibrahim alayhi salam, of course I can recognize that. So we have a marfu or a rafa ism afterwards. So the subject would be Ibrahim here. Very easy, inshallah. So we will not translate the huwa. So huwa will not be translated. So ma kana Ibrahimu. So Ibrahim was not. Ibrahim was not Yahudiyan, a Jew, wala Nasraniyan, or a Christian. Again, wa is continuing whatever came before. I've done this many times with you. So you can see here from the Quran a beautiful example of negating the sentence. We're talking about the past tense, Ibrahim alayhi salam, and we are saying that what Allah is saying in the Quran, he was neither a Jew nor a Christian. And you can see the application of ma in negating the whole sentence. Inshallah, I'm going to conclude the video here to avoid making the video too long. Inshallah, in the next part, I'm going to show you how kana is used also with verbs. We looked at how they're used with nominal sentences, but they're commonly also used with verbs to give different shade of meaning to the verbs that we have learned so far. So it can be used with verbs. Of course, we've seen them in nominal sentences also. We'll also take a look at Kana and her sisters. Example of the most common ones used in the Quran. I'll give you some examples as you do not really need to learn all of them. It is the Kana that you need to learn well. Jazakumullah khairan for watching the video. Please like and share with your contacts, inshallah. I hope you're benefiting from these lessons. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy for all of us to learn the essential Arabic to begin to understand the Quran. As for now, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Inshallah, I'll see you in the next video.
الذي علم بالقلم